Hypocrisy.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Law-Splaining the Interwebs. I am your host, Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law, a small law firm in central Minnesota. How's it going? What is happening? Stupid hair. Anyway, how's it going? Sorry, I'm early. I know that's racist of me. I'm supposed to be late in unison with pregnant women or whatever. But here we are. Am I growing sideburns? No, my hair just needs to be cut. I got to try and get in this week. And I don't know, my barber like changed his hours. So I don't know if I can get into like Thursday or something. We'll see. Anyway, hi. Happy July 3rd. It's July 3rd. It's almost July 4th, right? Which is America Day. And tomorrow will probably, I guess it's going to depend on what's happening tomorrow. Drex is possibly going to come out here tomorrow. Possibly. But he might have to wait because there's supposed to be some weather or something. I don't know. I'm playing it by ear. If Drex comes out, he'll be on tomorrow. If Drex doesn't come out, he won't be on tomorrow. But what I will do, probably in either case, is rant a little bit about liberty, about freedom, all of that stuff. We're going to talk. I'm not going to do like a full history show or whatever, but you know, we'll figure out what to do specifically, but liberty is going to be the theme because liberty is why this country is supposed to exist. And so many people want to get rid of that. But, you know, I mean, we do what we do. We do what we do. And what we can do is remind people that beautiful, beautiful taste of freedom that comes around once a year. We get to remember that it exists. And then we get to go back to the 80,000 pages of fucking federal regulations. But that's beside the point. That's beside the point. So that'll be, you know, tomorrow we'll have something 4th of July themed. Tonight, we've got some major themes to cover, some major topics, which is the 2 SCOTUS rulings that people are really melting down about right now. Touched on these on Friday, but Friday was more of a like casual show. And though I had, you know, a couple lawyers on, I didn't really want to get like deep into the subjects. We talked about them for a little bit, but there's a ruling on affirmative action in higher education, specifically Harvard and the University of North Carolina's admissions policies, which overtly and intentionally favored students of specific races. I don't want to just blanket say minorities because Asians weren't counted as minorities and Middle Easterners just didn't exist at all. Like they're like, fuck those sand people, like the Tuscan Raiders or whatever. Like, no. We don't want them blowing up our schools. So they just kind of ignored a couple classes of people. They didn't like delineate between Asian and Southeast Asian or whatever. So we're going to be talking about that and where people get this ruling completely wrong, why they're all fucking freaking out about it, and why it doesn't apply in most of the ways that they think that it applies. Then we've got the other ruling, which in a weird way kind of goes hand in hand with this, but in a completely different direction. But it's in the same theme and ballpark of like civil rights favoring some sort of protected class. Now, what's interesting is most people don't realize that protected classes are not only specific categories of people. Like black is not a protected class. Race is a protected class. So like you can't say, well, you can't delineate or distinguish specifically by race and be like, unless it's just black people, like it doesn't work that way. Well, unless it's just positive for the black people, I guess. That's not it. You cannot discriminate by race means you can't discriminate by race, not by black. So that's part of it. And in a similar way, we've got an issue with this ruling of a website designer and not being compelled to create a website specifically in favor of LGBTQ plus marriages that violated her closely held religious beliefs. Now, whatever you think about the right to discriminate in business, like personally, I believe that everyone should have a free right to discriminate in all business of every kind, of every stripe, based on any category they want, including flat out racism. That's like, I wouldn't do that. And I think that any business that would specifically open up in sort of opposition or competition to a business that does discriminate would have a competitive advantage in the market that they're in. Maybe not. I mean, I guess it depends on the market, but you know what? Like them's the ropes. If I make a business, you shouldn't be able to compel me to service you just because you have some characteristic that I may not want to service you for whatever reason. Personally, I like money, right? Like, so I would service everybody. I just realized that could be clipped the wrong way. But I would be non-discriminatory because my whole objective of business is just make as much money as possible. But that doesn't mean that I should tell someone else that they have to be compelled to service someone who they don't like. Even if I think what they don't like about them is unreasonable, that's not my job. I frankly don't give a shit. Not the thing that I should be worried about. Now, there's a couple issues with this one. First of all, you have a bunch of fucking idiots who really, really think that the big own of the Supreme Court is, I'm going to open up a whatever store and deny service to straight white men. It's like, cool, I guess. Like, first of all, most of us would just say, I accept your term. Well, most straight white men, like I'm obviously not straight. Most straight white men would just say, we accept your terms and just fuck off. Like they don't care. They don't want your stupid cookies or whatever you're going to buy. Like they don't want that. Like, and this is a weird thing. I'm not sure where it became popular to compel business from someone who dislikes me. Like if I walked in to a like a hood store that was super pro like black and the anti-white or something, and they're like, get out of here, you saltine cracker moon cricket motherfucker. Like if they said, wait, it's cream cricket. Shit. I said the wrong one. Cream cricket motherfucking mayo monkey. Like if they yelling at me like that, first of all, I'm going to laugh. I think it's funny. And then I'll be like, yeah, I hate white people too, like as a joke, try attention breaker. But then if they pulled a gun on me, because that's what I heard black shopkeepers do, I've never been to one, then I would be like, you know what? Cool, man. Like, I respect it. I respect it. Put the blicky down. I don't need to be gotten today. So I'm going to go to the other store that like says whites allowed or whatever. Like that's what I would do, because I don't trust that guy's going to give me quality customer service. Like the return policy is probably like return me to dust. And so, you know, it is what it is. Why the fuck would I want to force someone to work with me? Like, cause if we talk all the time about these companies expressing disdain for their customers, and their customers are just like, all right, deuces, we're out, right? Like Bud Light is seeing this. And that's how reasonable people react to this. Now, that's not to say that there wasn't a specific level of discrimination that was problematic in the past, specifically in the 1950s and 60s. But it's hard for people to remember that Jim Crow laws were literally government enforced programs in the South based on a decision by the Supreme Court, Plessy versus Ferguson, where it enshrined this separate but equal thing and allowed laws to be passed in favor of racial segregation under the guise that, you know, they don't have to be together. They just have to be equal, until you realize like it's not equal, right? at one Subway sandwich store for white people, you got like a 5-inch sub. And then when you went to the Subway sandwich store for black people, it was like a 10-inch sub. And it's just not fair. It's just not. Now, the sub was overcooked at the black store. They put in the toaster too long. But at the white store, like, it was shorter. And it wasn't like girthy or anything, like it had less meat on it. So they decided that even though it was separate but equal, it wasn't ever equal. And that was a big revelation in Brown versus Board of Education. I think like the third, I don't even remember which one. There's a bunch of those cases. But, you know, we went through this progression from Plessy to Brown, and then the Civil Rights Act was passed. And all of this stuff basically applies the 14th Amendment to say, when it says that everybody gets equal access, we mean everybody gets equal access and protections under the law. And so they applied these rules of public accommodation. I'm way over explaining this. We'll get into it more when we get into this subject. But anyway, and there were issues with this, but people overlook the government's role in creating, facilitating, and fostering those issues. And then the government like corrected it, I guess, through the Supreme Court, because like Congress was completely cucked on fixing it. They're like, well, we'll wait for the court to fix it and then we'll fix it more, I guess. And once that happened, you know, things began to change. People began to not give a shit about it. And they kind of realized that, oh, like we could just own a business and sell to everybody, even if we hate them, and it'll be fine. But that being said, I think we're at a point in our country where the overwhelming majority of, of entrepreneurs, of shopkeepers, of corporations, like they're running as hard as they can towards this diversity, equity, and inclusion shit. It should be pretty obvious that like Target is going to be like, you know what? No Mexicans. Like if you're Colombian, you can come in, but if you're Mexican, you can't. That's not going to happen in almost anywhere in the United States on any scale large enough to actually impact people's lives. That's just not going to work. And, you know, part of that is this reason of consolidation and conglomeration of corporations and corporate ownership of businesses. But the other part of that is just that people just don't care as much. Like they just don't. There's more communication between communities and demographics. Now, don't get me wrong, like race relations are an issue and they have been objectively worse following Obama's election. But that being said, most people on the individual person-to-person level and most business owners recognize that a dollar is a dollar. Like even if it comes from a woman, it's supposed to be 77 cents. You can still spend it like a buck. So they don't care to discriminate in the same way outside of very small shops, very small clubs and organizations. And a lot of those clubs and organizations have that exemption anyway. But we're going to talk about that. So some people are like, I'm going to open my tattoo parlor and not tattoo white people. It's like, okay, I guess. But that's also not going to work for you because that's still illegal. The other thing that we've got is people are now trying to taint the Supreme Court's opinion over fake evidence. And they say that this matters in some way. First of all, there's only one way where the submission of fake evidence would matter, and that is on the lawyer's ethical obligations and ethical responsibilities to the court. And if one of the lawyers or legal teams knowingly submitted fake evidence in regard to this request for a website for a gay wedding, which is kind of the pointed issue here, which we will fully discuss. If they were to submit that, they should be disciplined. That would be a violation of their ethics. However, people are trying to make it out like this is legally relevant, and it's not for several reasons that we're going to discuss as we go through this topic. All right? It's not legally relevant to the case. The Supreme Court isn't going to invalidate the case. It's not a factor in the ruling on the case. It's not a factor in the standing to bring the case. It has nothing to do with the case. This is the media astroturf of a very, very legitimate and will stand ruling because they don't like it. And it's the ongoing attack of the legitimacy of the Supreme Court. But we're going to hit all of that for the first main topic. We got something before it, but the first main topic is going to be going into these two big decisions over SCOTUS. We got some articles. I've got discussion on it about the legal aspects of these rulings and why they matter. What's up, Kurt? I saw you in the chat, man, but I was in the middle of like a run-on sentence that was 12 paragraphs long. So we're going to hit that. Then I got this article that will probably go through a little bit. And like, this isn't something that I have strong opinions on, but it is something that I have sort of philosophical points about. And it is this interview between Donald Trump Jr.'s ex-girlfriend, and Michael Cohen. Yeah, that one. Michael Cohen, former Trump lawyer, who allegedly or assumedly, I don't know, he has some podcast called Mea Culpa, which the Latin of mea culpa translates roughly to it's my fucking fault for being stupid. But it's anything but a mea culpa, and it's a whole bunch of blame on a whole bunch of shit. And it's this weird thing that people do. And I want to talk about it because it's relevant to Don Jr., but it's relevant to people that you will probably deal with in all kinds of aspects of your life, especially the older you get. And a lot of you guys in the audience are going to know about like these things already, but some people out there may not have encountered them, or they may wonder why people do this. And I think I have a little philosophy around that. Then we have a couple other topics, one of which I'm going to hit right away. Right away, it's going to be the first thing we talk about. It's not mentioned in the description or anything, but Geeks and Gamers was demonetized today over what we in the biz call some bullshit. YouTube just decided to demonetize a very successful channel that has a huge audience and is an integral part of a full business model for Geeks and Gamers. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to I'll explain why it's super shitty, why it's bogus, what actually happened as far as we can tell. We're relying on Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers veracity, but I haven't known him to like lie about anything. I know some people might be like, Jeremy, that guy says whatever about his like media reviews or whatever, but I haven't known him to like willingly lie about a factual issue like this. So I don't have any reason to distrust him on it. And I have every reason to distrust YouTube. So I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to post the link to my tweet or to his tweet, probably his tweet. And I'm going to ask you guys to do the super lame thing. And if you have a Twitter account, only if you have a Twitter account, I'm going to ask you to retweet it and just show some support. You know, these are guys, Geeks and Gamers guys who have supported me when I have issues. The friends of mine, they're at the end of the day, they're pretty good dudes. I know not everybody agrees with everything they say, but who fucking cares about that shit? So we're going to talk about that. Then at the end part of the show, I've got a couple more topics to hit after the ones that are listed in the title. One of them is this blown up discussion from Just Pearly Things about female attractiveness and the responses that she's getting. Now, we're not going to go deep into like the statement versus the responses and who's right, who's wrong, but I think they're just talking past each other. And I know people don't really care a lot of times about relationship stuff, which is why I'm putting it at the end. But if you're kind of interested in the dynamic between men and women, especially online right now, in the way that I am, which is, I find it absurdly entertaining and interesting personally. But if you're interested in that, I think it'll be a discussion where I can levy my opinion. You can take it for what it's worth. I'm sure a bunch of people are going to disagree with me, and that's okay. My main point is that people are talking past each other using common terms, but not common understanding of those terms. And I think it's really relevant. What's up to Good Logic and his Raiders? Thank you so much for joining the stream today. I could not join Joe today, even though normally on Monday I would go on his stream. I could not join him today. I was at my in-laws' house until after 9 p.m., so I wasn't home to be on the show. But that being said, we'll talk about the Pearly Things stuff and the retorts to it, because I find it interesting. Also, Chris Boozy, his Bot Sentinel account and the spoutable, like shitty fake Twitter that he tried to create, like those accounts got banned on Twitter, which is hilarious to me, because they seem to, my guess is that they violate Twitter's data collection policies, which is scraping Twitter data to try and like promote or profit some business. If you know, like most of you probably don't know because you're reasonable human beings, but Elon Musk put limits on the amount of tweets that you can view in a day. And the limits are really high. Like, I don't know how many tweets I view in a day that's active. Like today, I was pretty active on Twitter because I saw a bunch of interesting stuff. And I probably viewed like a couple hundred to maybe 1,000 tweets. And the limits are like, they were 6,000, then they were 8,000, then they're 10,000 if you have the Twitter Blue, and they're less if you don't. And what he's allegedly trying to crack down on is these companies that scrape millions of tweets for either AI purposes or whatever. And that's becoming a problem, I guess, for Twitter. And it's a reminder that these services pay based on the amount of data that's transferred over the internet, right? Like usage and traffic is what happens. It's what makes live streaming so damn expensive to do to a sizable audience, and why most people utilize a service like YouTube or Rumble or whatever. What's up? Shout out to Rumble. YouTube or Rumble to go ahead and like facilitate live streaming. It's very, very data intensive the more people you have because it's high resolution. It's a lot of info. That being said, Elon's allegedly doing that because of these types of companies. Now, Spoutable, I think, might be in that category. I don't know how it's run. I don't know if it's run. I think Spoutable actually got shut down and terminated all the accounts on it. But that thing looked like a bot-ridden mess anyway. I'm not sure who was on there actually, other than Boozy, just like jerking off to his own bots. But, you know, some people like robots. I don't know. But anyway, it's very funny to me because, like, prior to Elon Musk, he had the eye or the trans penis of some Twitter safety person protecting him from doing what he does. Now he just got BTFO'd off the platform, and it's been hilarious because if you lose your special protections and powers, then you're on a level playing field with everybody else. Then you can't just break the rules constantly. So, that's funny. We'll talk about that a little bit. It's not a long topic. And then there's this other weird drama in a community that I'm adjacent to and a lot of my friends are in called Comicsgate. And I don't know what's going on, but I think it's got some valuable lessons for people involved in online content creation and how you interact with other people online. Because if you want to get into the business of this, and I know a small percentage of people who watch this show are curious about the inner workings of like online marketing and digital marketing. It's marketing twice, but like digital audience management, maybe, or digital engagement. I don't know how to word it. It doesn't matter. When you do this for a while, you start to organically see things that aren't necessarily visible to other people, especially people who have worked in sort of legacy media institutions, because they know of a specific way that marketing and advertising has worked for a long time, but it's changing dramatically with independent content creation, independent marketing, and self-promotion being accessible to everybody. And so I have some lessons on it on a guy named Matt Barr. If you guys are in the comics community or whatever, and you know who Matt Barr is, like, let me be very clear from the outset. I am not in any way calling for anyone to do, say, or not do anything for Matt Barr. I don't know if he has any active campaigns. I don't know if he's selling anything. He is purportedly an artist, but I'm going to use his words and his tweets as an example in what not to do in these online communities if you want to like sell stuff. Like how not to act on the internet is a pretty important lesson if you're transitioning your business to the internet. And he made some major missteps today, which I think are kind of funny. But like, again, if you like him, if you like his stuff or whatever, like go subscribe to him, watch his channel or whatever, and then like buy whatever campaign. Like I don't care. Like I don't have any interest in messing with the guy's business. It's just funny. So we'll talk about that probably at the end. 2 Scoops of Destroyer says, Nick giving tips to those looking to transition. No. I just want to get the tips back that our doctors took from us when we were little. That's what I want. But yeah, assuming the show isn't already like 5 hours long, we'll do that. My hair looks raggedy. Yes, it does, because again, today was another day outside. So we're supposed to get some weather tomorrow for the 4th of July, which means our 4th of July hangout with the family got moved to today because it was beautiful out. But, you know, that's how it goes. All right. So first, we're going to hit a couple super chats that have come in, and then we'll get into these topics. Again, Geeks and Gamers first, and then, bam with the title, and then everything else. Wolfgang Deo sent several chats, and I'm going to just go ahead and cut them, or combine them, not cut them. Maybe I should cut them. He says, yo, Nick, not sure if you saw my Twitter DM, but the NSA didn't like it, so the FBI knocked. My White House Lego set got stolen. My DM was, I mailed you my manifesto. Bay, don't let Newsom fill the gap. He says, by the way, there's an amazing movie called Sound of Freedom, where real-life superhero Tim Ballard tracks down Maps, a former Homeland Fed, and I got to meet him in person last year along with Yeonmi Park. Yeonmi Park, who I've heard of, but I have no idea who that is. Let's see. And Wolfgang Deo says, transmissions belong under the car, and maps belong on the wall. Always. Yeah, she's the one that escaped North Korea. That's right. Okay. Yeah. I have heard, again, I've heard her name. Park means Korean. But I didn't remember exactly what it was. Let's see. He also says, apparently DeSantis ran an anti-LGBTQ LMNOP ad, which a lot of news is saying is heavily criticized, but where is the ad? I don't know. What is the issue? I don't know. I have no idea. Frederick Little says it's after midnight here, so happy Independence Day. You, Nick, Lady Rackets, the rest of your family, and everyone in the chat, be safe and have fun. Thank you, Frederick Little. Very much appreciated. Happy 4th of July. Happy Independence Day to you as well. Oh, in honor of 1776, Sargon, Az, and I are working on setting up the next painting hobby stream where we like paint miniatures or build Legos or whatever we do that is nerdy, and then we like just talk about whatever. It's fun. It's a very fun stream. They're daytime streams because they're both in Britain, but in honor of 1776, I am annexing the stream to my channel. We're going to take it over, and it'll be here next time. So as soon as we have the date on that, I will go ahead and let you guys know, and we'll set it up. They're fun streams. Okay, let me get this Geeks and Gamers shit pulled up, because this shit's important. When people get treated unjustly and unfairly by YouTube, and I'm aware of it, I try to address it. Now, the funny thing is, I'm not omniscient. I try to be omniscient, but I'm not. And some people get really mad at me when I don't talk about like their thing, which is hard to talk about everyone's thing because YouTube does this a lot and I don't always see it. And sometimes when I see it, I only know the person a little bit and I don't know the specifics of it. And like sometimes I'll talk to them, sometimes I don't have contact with them, whatever. But like this is one that I found and I think is absolutely complete bullshit. And so I'm definitely going to talk about this one. So here we go. I know some people are like, I supported Nick and he didn't support me. It's like, support you in what? I don't even know what happened to you. So here it is. D-Day Cobra is the well, we're going to go ahead and share this link as well in all of the chats. So please, again, if you have Twitter accounts, please consider retweeting this, boosting the message. Literally the weirdest thing about YouTube is that the only way to get proper customer service is to scream on Twitter as loud as possible with as many people as possible. Again, I'm not asking you to like Jeremy or D-Day Cobra, or Jeremy is D-Day Cobra, or Geeks and Gamers or anything like that. I'm not asking you to do that. Just recognize that this is completely unjust, complete bullshit by the YouTube sort of content moderation system or team. I don't know. And I'll explain why it's legitimately bullshit. So here we go. They were live and they got demonetized on YouTube. Now, demonetization is a couple things. It doesn't mean their video got demonetized. Their entire channel is no longer eligible for monetization at all. When that happens, they also take the money you have earned for the pay period and they hold it. Now, if you don't know, the last pay period just ended in June, and we get paid on the 21st of the next month. So June 30th is the cutoff date. Payment goes out on the 21st. So if this isn't resolved and their monetization isn't restored, YouTube could hold on to this money for a period of up to 90 days or really indefinitely. And that's really fucking tough when this is like your job, that they could just hold the money that you've already earned. Importantly, you know, Jeremy live streams and people super chat to him through YouTube system, which means those are direct contributions that are supposed to go to him, not to YouTube. But YouTube will hold all of that money, including all the ad revenue during a review process. They'll hold it for 90 days and they may hold it forever. That's bullshit right there. That's money that's already been earned and they take it. So that's the first thing. The next thing is why it was demonetized. According to Jeremy, and this seems to be the case, in 2019, they uploaded a video that did receive a warning, a content warning. The video was unlisted. No one saw it. No one saw this video. They uploaded it to their thing. It got demonetized, so they didn't list it. During the review, they got a warning strike, which once you get a warning strike on YouTube, that is your first strike, and you only get a warning one time. After that, you have 3 strikes, and your account, if you get 3 strikes in 90 days, your account gets terminated. All right? So no one saw this video. They got a warning strike, so they never made it public. They just left it there. Unlisted or private, I don't know, but they just left it on their channel. Now, here's the thing. You may think, well, that was dumb. Why didn't you delete it? Let me tell you why. If you delete a video, YouTube doesn't delete it. They delete it for you, but they can still hold it and review the video that's deleted and issue a content violation based on the unlisted or based on the deleted video. And if you delete it, you cannot appeal the decision on the video because they say they can't review it. And it's like, wait a minute. How did you know to issue a content violation if you can't review it because it's deleted? So it's absolute bullshit system. You are forced to leave videos up even if they violate content, because if you take them down, you can't appeal it. This is a terrible, terrible system. Absolutely atrocious for us content creators to navigate because, look, if we upload a video and it gets, you know, a strike, which I think is silly if no one watches it, but you upload it unlisted, you have it reviewed, and they say, actually, this is not monetizable or whatever, we want to just take the video down. Like, we don't want to keep it there clogging up our uploads. It's pointless to have. We would rather take that video down and then make edits or whatever and re-upload the video. That makes sense. But they don't. If you do that, you're still subject to the same disciplinary shit. So this is a video that was uploaded in 2019. They received some, you know, a content warning for it. But now, because of that video in 2019, their entire channel has been demonetized 4 years later when they already received a content review of it and they've already, like, they can't just remove it. That's why this is completely bullshit. Complete bullshit. So please consider going on there, tagging Team YouTube, either quote tweeting or retweeting it, liking the tweet. As much noise as possible is really, really helpful in these situations. I know it sucks to be forced to go on Twitter to do it, but it's the only way. It's the only way we can do this. If we go through our own customer service people, even if we have partner managers and stuff like that, they can't almost ever get any results. But Twitter noise gets results. So that's some bullshit that's going on with some friends of mine. If you could please signal boost that, I would appreciate it. Again, one more time, I'm going to post these. I'm going to post the Twitter message in the chat. So if you could, again, if you have a Twitter account, if you don't have a Twitter account, whatever. But if you do, and you feel like, helping out a friend, please go do that. So there. All right. That's that issue. You brought up my name and got banned immediately from what? What'd you get banned from? Okay. So, yeah, many people are noting that Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers is openly pro-Trump, has been since 2020 election and probably the 2016 election. I don't know how far back it goes, but elections are coming up. There may be a political motive, but I don't know if that's actually the case. So I don't want to make that assumption automatically. All right, so here we go. We're going to start with the affirmative action. Where the hell is this? Here we go. Talking about this. Wait, no, this is this is the gay one. All right, let me find. Well, I don't have an article for the affirmative action one, so we'll just talk about it. So here we go. So the Supreme Court effectively was asked to review the race-based admissions policies of two schools, Harvard and the University of North Carolina. And both of these schools have kind of similarly themed admissions processes. They're some of the largest and most well-respected in learning higher education institutions in the country, right? Harvard is considered the #1 college in the United States, and then UNC is way up there. Yeah, Kurt, I am talking the Supreme Court without you, and I am an ass. Speaking of me being an ass and a whole bunch of ADD, so going to Anime Matsuri, I've almost got the full guest list all locked down and everything, and I will announce the official guest list of Anime Matsuri once I've got everything. One of the things that I'm collecting from everyone, including myself, are headshots for the table arts. And so I got some headshots made. I've never had this done. And it was super fun. But they're on my Instagram. If you want to see, well, one of them's on my Instagram. It's not the one I'm actually submitting for Matsuri. I'm going to save that one for the convention. But I told the photographer, who's a very, very close friend of mine, I said, I want to look like the biggest asshole possible. So if you want me to see me looking like an asshole, you can go check out my most recent post on Instagram. And that's a great place to be. So yeah. And let me know how we did. The one I'm going to submit to Matsuri, I look like even more of an asshole, which is great. All right. Potentially criminal says, are you seriously talking about race without me? Potentially criminal. No Jews were harmed in the making of this lawsuit. So anyway, here we go. So they were asked to review the specifically race-based admissions policies in Harvard and University of North Carolina. here's a rough breakdown of the process. Each of them has a multi-tiered system for admissions. There's a first phase with an initial review, and a second phase with like a stupid voting thing, and then like a third phase. Now, in the first and the third phases, or the first and the final phases, in each of those, race can be considered. It's technically not allowed to be the sole consideration for admission, but it can just be a factor for admission. And this is relying on some older lawsuits. And by older, I mean like the 20 teens lawsuit, and maybe the 2000s to 2010s, either the 2000s or the 2000 teens. Like these aren't super old lawsuits, but anyway, they're allowed to use race as a, oh wait, it was 2003. They're allowed to use race as a factor, but not the sole factor, but it can be a massive factor in education. And specifically, they cannot add a minus to anyone based on their race. So they can't go, this guy's Mexican, minus down points. They can only add up points. But the interesting thing about updutes is if everybody else gets an updoot based on race, it's effectively a downdoot. Right? Like that's how it goes. If you go, black people, Mexican, well, Hispanic people, not Asians, all get upvotes based on their skin color, then white people effectively get a downvote. And people are like, that doesn't seem fair. And they have said that Harvard said specifically, a significant majority of their African-American students got in specifically based on the plus that they got from race. So what that tells you about Harvard's system is that race is only a factor. It is a major factor in this. Now, some people miss some stuff in this early ruling where they allowed this race-based factoring to go into admissions. And one of the critical things that they ruled on is, or that they set up these rules, the rules stated that the reasoning behind the racial considerations had to be something that was articulable and discernible by the Supreme Court as a government interest, specifically a compelling government interest, because this has to pass strict scrutiny because it's a race-based process. All right. So the compelling government interest has to be something like maybe promoting a diversity of backgrounds within the education environment to allow constructive discussions from multiple viewpoints. For example, that wasn't in there. That wasn't in Harvard's or UNC's policies. What we've got instead are these very vague things like promoting good leadership, which isn't something that's actually determinable by the Supreme Court. They can't measure how Harvard is promoting good leadership or specifically like how race factors into that. So they've got that factor that they have a problem with. And the other problem was the Supreme Court in 2003 said, and these things need to be fucking done in 25 years. You have 25 years to get rid of this shit. Very, very important that you have a timer on it. And that's kind of ignored in a lot of people's discussions about these race-based policies. Does anybody here think that these policies, which are 20 years old, are going to end in 5 years automatically without the Supreme Court shutting it down? Because it's been 20 years since the ruling that said you got 25 years. So 5 years from now, we're supposed to be completely done with race-based admissions. That ain't happening. That's not happening at all. So with that, we've got the Supreme Court saying, all right, your factors are useless. This is obviously racially discriminatory. You can't articulate a compelling government interest in allowing this race-based discrimination, and there's no way you're done in 5 years. No way. So we're just going to shut it down because your system sucks. Take that, pieces of shit, piece of garbage. We're going to shut it down. Well, now everyone's freaking out. Everyone is freaking out about this ruling because suddenly Harvard is somehow going to be whites only, or maybe whites and Asians only, but Asians are white, we learned. And they think this is a big problem. In fact, there's already a lawsuit filed over Harvard's legacy admissions process saying that it favors white people unfairly because the alumni of Harvard, I guess, is predominantly white. Therefore, their offspring has a better chance of getting into Harvard based on whiteness. But it isn't, that's not race-based. So they're going to have it's not facially race-based, right? But you've already got a lawsuit asserting that white students are being unfairly favored in Harvard's admissions policies, which is definitely not the case because they just lost on unfairly favoring minority students over white students based on discrimination. And they haven't had a chance to change the policy yet. It also doesn't necessarily mean that Harvard can't use other means to try and discern race and make decisions in favor of various racial groups based on other factors. Now, this is kind of an interesting situation. And what I love is that the Atlantic has published a giant screed about the death of the admissions essay. And I'm not going to pull it up because I really don't want to read through the admissions essay article from the Atlantic where they're crying and kvetching about like the death of this wonderful process of telling your stupid life story to a bunch of people who don't fucking care. But now they say that Black people specifically will be forced to demean themselves to describe their racial hurdles rather than their achievements in hopes to prompt affirmative action that can kind of happen in the background. Now, just for a moment, soak up the fucking irony of the Atlantic lamenting that Black people will be forced to covertly tell colleges that they're Black because their achievements, according to the Atlantic, won't be good enough to get them into Harvard. That's the Atlantic. That is this massive paragon of publishing suggesting that Black people just aren't good enough on their own to get into Harvard, which is fucking bonkers. And everybody's talking about this. Like the admissions essay is now just to talk about my racial struggles because that's the only way I'll get in. It's like, well, how about you just compete with other people like through achievements and GPA? Like you kicked my ass. I had a shitty GPA. I didn't want to go to fucking Harvard. What kind of idiot spends all their time in high school like trying? Oh my God, that's terrible. But that's the thing. That's the rule. That's what they want. And that's how these college institutions are planning to sort of work in an affirmative action workaround to their admissions process where things are not based on race, but on other factors like economic demographics, geographic demographics, and things like that, where they can try to guess where the Black people have been hiding and pick them out to go to Harvard. Like that's the funniest shit I may have ever heard. Like that's amazing. But again, the fact that these people are saying that minorities are forced to do this so that these colleges will pick them rather than just saying, you know, everybody's going to have to like try and compete now. It's like, well, I guess if anybody just talks about their achievements, they must be white or Asian. And therefore, like, what if you're a Black kid whose mom made you practice violin for 16 hours a day, piano for 12 hours a day with your feet while you only ate fried rice? Like, what if that's your life, but you're Black though? And so you write that down. They're like, oh, nope. This is Silicon Valley programmer in training. Definitely squinty. We're not going to admit him in. He's like, but but I was beat by the police. Should have put that in your essay, bro. Like, this is crazy. This is fucking crazy. Anyway, this is kind of the fallout that's coming after the Supreme Court. And it's not just this. There was I am going to pull this up real quick. I tweeted something out earlier today at Axios. Axios is a publication that's kind of weird because they oftentimes just give kind of a rundown of a situation, very quick bullet points. And this one they got so wrong that it was fucking annoying. Let's see. Here we go. The title of the article, it's not really an article. Title of the blurb is "The Supreme Court Falls to Earth." Here it is, by Sam Baker. I don't know who this is. He says the Supreme Court is falling off the pedestal it built for itself down into the muck of normal politics. And I think this is a good transitory moment between these two Supreme Court cases or topics. Because this is really, really important for everyone to understand. So why it matters. That's increasingly how the public sees it. That's how the rest of the political system treats it. And it's getting harder and harder to believe the justices aren't interested in wielding that power. Let me go ahead and help you. The Supreme Court has always been a political tool with political aims. Always, always, always. It was always intended as a part of a political system. Now, let me counterbalance that with the Supreme Court's lifetime appointments allow them the flexibility to move in apolitical directions. But anybody who thinks that a system of politicians deciding lifetime appointments is not making obscenely political decisions as part of their own self-marketing is stupid. I can't tell you how anyone else, how else to describe this. If you think the Supreme Court is apolitical or neutral on politics in any way, you're wrong and it's dumb. And I see someone who says lifetime appointment sucks. I disagree. It's baked into the system of checks and balances between the federal legislative and judicial branches. And I think it's critically, critically important to have a judiciary that is resistant to the fast-changing pace of American politics. Because one of the specific goals in setting up a Republican system of government by the founders was the idea that it would be resistant to majority or mob rule on political issues. If you had the ability to quickly shift supermajorities in the legislature and executive branch and align them, you can radically change the scope of this country. The Supreme Court is there to say, look, I know you guys have this political will that you're trying to force through, but we also have this set of rules and you have to follow the rules. And those lifetime appointments are the ballast on the ship tipping over. Because if we just went with the majority rule on everything, even in a representative Republican government, you're going to have these dramatic shifts left and right that people won't be able to necessarily keep up with. They're going to be influenced by shifting ideas on science or philosophy. And we've gone through some pretty crazy ones throughout the history of the United States, including when the United States political class was overtly pro-eugenics, which most people have decided maybe like eugenics violates a lot of human rights and we maybe don't want to do that in the way that it was done in the 19-teens, 1920s. Like maybe that kind of messes with people. We shouldn't do that. We have shifting ideas that go back and forth on progressivism versus conservatism, on the climate, on the human body, on abortion, on religion, on everything, on firearm usage. And if we just shifted to the whim of the political classes with no balance, we would have a system that would quickly eat itself. And it would be even more politically retributive than it is, and it probably wouldn't have lasted. The judicial branch as a political tool based on setting 1 to 9, I guess it could be up to 9 if maybe a bomb hit the court or something, appointments to the Supreme Court that will last a lifetime enshrines a semi-balanced system that will last for a significant amount of time before changing. And the appointments are typically staggered out. Now, we got 3 in a row with Trump, which is funny, but they're typically staggered out over a sufficient period of time that it enshrines specific snapshots of political ideology as it goes, and those kind of cycle out, and it allows the change in the judiciary to track with political change, but on a much slower progression. This is why Axios and everybody who talks about the neutrality of the Supreme Court has this absolutely backwards, and it drives me fucking nuts. Like, what? I mean, these guys are supposed to be apolitical. It's like, supposed to be apolitical. Every appointment of a Supreme Court in anyone alive's lifetime of a Supreme Court justice was done by a partisan person. Typically, I think 100% of the time, promoting, appointing, and nominating and then appointing someone who aligned with their political ideology. Maybe there's an appointment or two in the last 100 years that specifically didn't, but I can't think of anyone. Now, they may have to compromise a little bit based on who's in the Senate to garner enough votes to secure the nomination, right? Or to secure the appointment after the nomination. You may have to do that, but you typically get someone in the same vein of politics because that's what you're aiming for. Like, you want someone to implement the political will of the people that elected you or your party or your platform, because that's what they elected you to do. Anyway, give me just a second. My allergy shit is flaring up. I need to grossly wipe my nose. 1 second. Ah! Yuck! Okay, that was disgusting. Ah! All right. Anyway, I mentioned this yesterday on my movie stream on Twitch that I've been having some nasty allergies and like nose leaking. If my nose is leaking, like, we're talking biblical flood possibilities here. So I have to keep on top of that. Okay. So let's keep going in this article after that screed. The big picture, the justices tried very hard for a long time to cultivate a perception that they existed on an elevated, erudite plane far above the petty concerns that occupy elected officials or elected politicians. They do. They still cultivate that perception, and that perception is true. They're not swayed by the current political whims, but it doesn't mean they're apolitical. It means that they're not above petty concerns of elected officials, because those shift all the time. But they are concerned with their own political positions and their own judicial reasoning being applied to things. Now, judicial reasoning and political position don't always line up. Conservatives don't always vote conservative, and liberals mostly vote. They don't always vote liberal. We'll just go with that. But that being said, they almost always vote along with their judicial understanding or perception. Like, Clarence Thomas is often going to take an originalist approach. Same with Gorsuch. Some of the justices will take a textualist approach where they say, what's the text say? How do we understand it? We're less concerned with how it was when it was written and more concerned with how it's read now. And there's all sorts of judicial perspectives that get applied. So with that being said, they're very consistent on those. And if you can figure out sort of the judicial perspective, you can kind of figure out where these justices are going to fall. Roberts's judicial perspective is he's a giant cuck. So you always know that Roberts will put out some bullshit based on being a cuck to overtly public opinion. Because as the Chief Justice, for as long as he's in term, this will be called the Roberts Court. His lifelong legacy will be how he directed the Supreme Court. Now, if you look at Roberts' opinions, you get a couple things up close. He is very adamant on protecting the First Amendment in general. specifically in regards to speech and often in regards to religious liberty. Roberts is pretty strong on those things, and that's fairly consistent through a lot of his rulings. But he also has a concern with judicial interventionism. And so when you've got like the Obamacare decision and you look at Roberts, those don't have, Obamacare didn't have anything to do with religious liberty. It didn't have anything to do with liberty of free speech. But what it had a lot to do was with the perception of judicial intervention in overturning an overtly quote unquote popular political action, right? And he said in his opinion, the Supreme Court does not exist to save you from your political decisions. But in a way it does, but that's beside the point. So if you can figure out these sort of judicial philosophies, you can kind of figure out how they're going to vote on a lot of these cases. Anyway, but that doesn't mean that they're not concerned. It just means that their political ideas are different and rooted typically in a place and time, whereas politicians will change. They'll be like chameleons to garner votes and public support and donations according to what is acceptable to their perceived political house, if you will. All right. They said the court's work was wholly separate from considerations like public opinion. Even when they had to take up a case with political implications, they approached it only as a question of legal scholarship, not sullied by ideology or policy preferences. This is abjectly untrue, going back at least as far as the New Deal, which lots of decisions during the New Deal were overtly political, as well as in the following decades. This is just silly. So this is driving the news at every turn. The court looks more like run-of-the-mill, outcomes-driven, raw power politics. This is not new for the Supreme Court. This has always been the complaint of the Supreme Court when it doesn't go along with the media's ideas of how they should rule on something, because the media is trying to create culture rather than track it. The unprecedented leak of a draft opinion. This is funny. Unprecedented leak of a draft opinion in last year's abortion case was very much the type of leak that has historically only happened in other parts of the government. For that matter, so were the leaks about Chief Justice Roberts switching his vote to save Obamacare in 2012. So wait a minute. Historically only happened in other parts of government. Unprecedented. Well, it was precedented here. So that's silly. Good job, guys. And then this, ProPublica uncovered ethics issues this year that would be a real controversy for anyone who had to get reelected to their powerful job. Not true at all. These ethics issues exist in greater degree to pretty much anyone elected to the House or the Senate or the presidency. These ethics issues have been all over, even if you don't agree with them. The statements about Trump's ethical implications far exceed anything said about Clarence Thomas or Samuel Alito. This is an insane proposition when they've been talking about emoluments like fucking idiots for the past, 4 years now? Constantly talking about emoluments in the exact wrong way to try and talk about the ethical implications of Donald Trump when his hotel gets money from someone staying there from another country. If you own a hotel, it's going to get money from someone staying there from another country, probably, maybe not a Days Inn or something. So anyway, these ethical implications exist in every branch of government for any government official who does anything. Wealthy GOP donors with interest before the court, this is actually not true, paid for luxury vacations for Justices Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito. When those vacations were taken, they did not have interest before the court, and actually, neither of the GOP donors directly had interest before the court. They had ownership interests in companies with interest before the court, and again, multiple years after the alleged donations took place. For Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito, who didn't disclose those gifts, ProPublica reported. They weren't required to disclose those gifts. They can't be required to disclose those gifts by anyone except the court itself. Thomas also reportedly sold a family home to GOP donor Harlan Crow. Okay. Again, what is the problem with selling a home to someone who does not have business before the court? There is no problem. As stated by every justice on the Supreme Court, they have all agreed that the alleged issues are not a concern for the court. 1 second. This is going to get real fucking annoying tonight. Jesus. Okay. Finally, the justice's reactions to the controversy haven't helped. Saying that this isn't an actual ethical issue, here's why, isn't an unhelpful reaction. It's an explanation of why you're wrong, why ProPublica is wrong, why the mainstream media running with this is wrong. And of course, this is all driven by the mainstream media's overtly anti-conservative bias. It's why they're attacking these two justices who are legacy justices on the court. They're both aging. They want to force them into retirement, push impeachment, or just simply push outmoding them by nominating more members to the court. This is what is being driven by the media in places like Axios right now. Alito, borrowing a page from any decent political operative's playbook. Again, Supreme Court justices are overtly political. Trying to get ahead of the story, pre-butting ProPublica's investigation with a Wall Street Journal op-ed. Yeah, he knew what was going on. He's like, yeah, this is some bullshit's going to come out. Here's why it's dumb. And Alito is probably the most willing of all justices to speak his mind in public. He delivered a speech in 2021 dismissing criticism of the court's shadow docket as rank nonsense and has used public speeches to criticize COVID restrictions and the broad cultural acceptance of same-sex marriage. Okay. You don't lose freedom of speech because you're a Supreme Court justice. And the interesting thing is, nobody has the power to regulate justice behavior except the House of Representatives can bring impeachment articles against a Supreme Court justice, even for just politics. The Senate will vote on that impeachment. And it's not overseen by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. That only applies to the President of the United States. So you don't even have any potential bias by the Chief Justice. You just have this process for removing specific justices for quote unquote bad behavior. That bad behavior is anything defined by a majority of House members to bring the articles of impeachment and then agreed to by the Senate in the conviction for impeachment, which would remove a judge from the bench. It's the only way outside of a judge retiring to remove them from the bench, or they die, right? But you can't create some set of rules that the justices have to adhere to. You can try and create them, but if you do, they could just go, well, we'll follow them, I guess. And if they don't follow them, they'll go, too bad, fuck you. It's just political theater. But it's political theater designed to dupe dummies into believing that this is a big deal for the court. They can't point to any decision that they would suggest that Clarence Thomas or Samuel Alito would have decided differently had they not accepted the quote-unquote dubious donations. And in fact, in any decisions that involved the companies that had interest before the court, they voted along the exact same lines as their conservative colleagues on the court as predicted. Because, again, judicial perspective is much more consistent and much more reliable than they may have gotten a bribe. Anyway, this is a dumb article. And here they go on to say, confirmation hearings are a circus. Start the clock on that trend wherever you want. Robert Bork, Merrick Garland, take your pick. It goes back earlier than this, guys. But we've ended up in a place where the Senate treats the process like the prize fight it is, not neutral intellectual pursuit as it was once framed. Has anyone thought that the Senate's confirmation hearings on a justice were like an intellectual pursuit rather than political posturing? No. Even if they're gonna go ahead and approve the judge nomination, they're still gonna get their little political pot shots in because they're clippable for the news. As recently as the Obama administration, Supreme Court nominees still got broad bipartisan support. Democrats put an end to that under President Trump, and it's not coming back. But the bipartisan support was a ruse. It was a lie. They didn't support these judges. They just knew they didn't have the votes to keep them out. So why bother? It looks better to support them while questioning them, but saying, you know what? We disagree with their rulings here, their political philosophies here, but we respect their judicial integrity and steadfast record of upstanding behavior. Fuck off. It's all been political forever. Between the lines, you can even see it sometimes in the court's writing. Past weeks, affirmative action rulings were highly charged and highly personal. Far cry from dispassionate legal interpretation. That's because Ketanji Brown Jackson asserted that the only reason she got to the Supreme Court, and also the only reason that Clarence Thomas got to the Supreme Court, was affirmative action. That's highly personal and highly offensive. And Clarence Thomas fired back, because if you don't know how this works, they pre-draft opinions and then they submit them to each other, and then they get to comment on what the other justices are writing. And that's what takes the opinion so long to come out. So they get to comment on what the other people write because they've read it. So Clarence Thomas read the fact that he was going to be called out for getting to the Supreme Court based on affirmative action. He's like, yeah, you know what? Not every black person got where they were based on affirmative action. Some of them tried and worked, and they just achieved by merit, and they still can. That's the personal, highly charged talk that they're talking about. That's silly. That's silly. By the numbers, the public is noticing all of this. Just 18% of Americans said they had a great deal of confidence in the Supreme Court in the NORC poll that followed last year's abortion ruling. At the same time, 36% said they have hardly any confidence in the court, an increase more than 10 percentage points in just a few years. Okay. Shocker. Like, people have political ideas, and again, the court's job is to be resistant to mob or mass ruling. Massive shifts in political will, the court resists those by design. So yes, people will at times of political turmoil lose some faith in the court. It doesn't matter if the people do. The question is always, what is Congress and the president going to do about it? They don't have to listen to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court can't actually stop them. But all those people who think that the court doesn't have legitimacy, would they go along with a president or a Congress who agreed with them saying they don't have legitimacy? That's the question the politicians are scared to fucking answer. Reality check. The court has not become political. The court is overtly political. Has always been. An institution with this much power to decide inherently political issues, from voting rights to campaign finance law, no matter to matters of life and death, what the federal government can and cannot do, limits the First Amendment. Even who gets to be president is and has always been a political institution. Hey, nailed it. But perception is catching up to that reality. So at least they kind of get it here. But again, part of the problem with all of this is trying to foster the perception that it's ever been anything like this. And the media is desperately trying to do that so they can discredit the court by implying it's changed. All right. So we need to get over to Rumble. But to do that, I have to talk to you about COVIDTaxRelief.com, sponsors of this stream. Look, ERC funding is a program that has been in place since the Trump administration, but has changed to broaden the net since its inception. Every change of the ERC law has been for adding people to the program. What is the program? If you had W-2 employees that you kept open, or that you kept employed through COVID, you're entitled to some measure of relief. How much depends on a lot of factors. But again, those factors have broadened. So even if you've checked into ERC funding before as a wage slave master, you may want to check again, because each employee that you kept employed as a W-2 employee could qualify you for up to $26,000 in direct financial compensation from the government. Again, this was done under Trump. It's been earmarked forever, and they're just looking to pay out those dollars. They're sitting there for you. Now, it's a complicated program. You don't want to do it wrong. You saw what happened to people who did PPP wrong. Some of them ended up in jail. These guys are experts in handling and navigating this program. Make sure you go check them out. Find out if you qualify, and they'll do everything for you. So you can give them a call at the number here on the page, or you can go to the website linked in the description on either Rumble or YouTube. Again, this is only for employers of W-2 employees. Don't waste your time if you only have independent contractors and run a gig business. They're not for you. Although they love you, it's not really, they're not going to be able to help you with anything. But if you had W-2 employees through COVID, this can be a huge boost. There are not directives or restrictions on how you spend the money like there were under PPP loans. You can use it for whatever purposes that you have. It's really a thank you for keeping people employed during a really tough time for a lot of people. They know that business owners made a lot of sacrifices. These guys know that business owners are really busy, can't keep up with all the rules, regulations, and policies around these things that change from time to time. So they take care of that for you, and they're here to help. COVIDtaxrelief.org. Give them a call. It can really only be neutral or better. They can't somehow harm you by taking the time to see if you qualify. All right, guys, check them out. They're sponsors of the show, and I thank you very much for that. With that, we're going to read some super chats, pop over to Rumble, and then we'll continue this discussion on the LGBTQ decision that just happened in just a moment. Gross. Gross. All right, here we go. We've got Nicholas Cruiser says, guys, Nick is barely cognizant, let alone omniscient. True. Chicken Nooble says, your hair is looking extra fabulous tonight. Oh, thank you. Master Lions gifted 15 memberships to the channel. Thank you so much. Adam Jones says, can I get a toast for my father who recently passed? Took care of us kids for years after mother passed early. Loved kids and grandkids, served his church and all in helping with all that he had. Aspires me to want to follow in his footsteps. Of course, Adam Jones, I will do that. Sounds like a tremendous man. Oh. Get wasabi for your nose. My eyes are getting red. Yeah, again, allergies. Fucking sucks. All right, here we go. Cheers to the father of Adam Jones, a man who took over for his family when his partner was unable to do so, was unable to continue, who filled the role of father and mother in the absence of the mother, who loved his children, loved his grandchildren, was proud of his progeny, and was inspirational to them. May he rest in peace, knowing that he did well. Cheers to him. Snort wasabi. Oh my God, that sounds fucking horrible. Mostly Gluten says it makes way more sense to make judges lifetime appointments than Congress to have lifetime appointments. Yeah, and some congressmen effectively have those lifetime appointments. They build up war chests and get free advertising that are basically impregnable. They're almost impossible to uproot after a while. Wolfgang Deo says the great thing about the legacy admissions of Harvard is that with the influx of affirmative action people, now if those people made it through, they can legacy their kids in. But women select by merit. So, oh well. Oh, Master Lions actually gifted 5 more memberships, bringing the total up to 20. Thank you so much. Renegade Shuriken says, hey, Rackets, started working out at the gym last week with the wife, but I need you to fat shame me again. Broke the damn box spring today. Heads up, you're competing with Camelot, and he's no slouch. Well, Camelot may be no slouch, but you are. You are, because your massive fucking gunt is dragging your shoulders forward into the sad posture of a butterball turkey. You broke the box spring on a mattress? My entire extended family getting on the mattress couldn't break a box spring. And you did? I'd be embarrassed for you if I wasn't shocked. What did you do? Eat Lizzo? Did you eat Lizzo and Tess Holiday? Have you had 7 Big Macs this hour, buddy? You fat piece of garbage. How do you even get to the gym? Did they just roll you down a hill and hope you crash through the window like the Kool-Aid man, but with cancer? Jesus Christ. Get on I'd tell you to get on a treadmill, but that thing would break too. Why don't we just wait for Elon Musk to make a rocket powerful enough to launch your fat ass into space? Because I don't know if there's any helping you. You better prove all of us wrong if your little wiggly nubs that stick out of your fat underbelly can even qualify as legs and walk your ass anywhere. Gross. Mario Carter 13 says, affirmative action gives minorities a leg up in society. If you Google Kamala Harris legs up, you might even find some of the tapes. Oh my God. Philip James says, have caught a Rakata Law show in a while. Life gets busy at times. I think you mean haven't, but welcome back. Thank you. Megan Sue 819 says, off topic, but legally, would adoptive parents of Natalia Grace can be held accountable, because I think she is/was a child at the time. Very disturbing. I don't know anything about Natalia Grace. Who the fuck is that? Elephant says, F you redcoats. Happy 4th, America. Grifty says, you even liked my tweet, lol. I did. Congrats on getting married, man. Salty C says, Anna Kasparian got red-pilled. I've heard something about that. I don't know if that's actually true. I've seen people talking about her making a shift, but I don't follow whatever she says, so I have no idea. Let's see. Brian Ogden says, Jetsons bot self-pleasure. Rosie the robot. Mr. J, come here and let me give you a clampy hand job. Could you imagine? Lizbots says, I work in higher ed admissions, can confirm bias. Not an FBI says, so I can get in as a white boy, and all I have to do is say I come from the hood? Yes. That is true. Cars in Depth says, discuss new Michigan hate speech law. Not tonight, but we'll get to it soon. Also, have you seen how high school debate has become so corrupted and woke, they don't permit actual debate? Nope. Let's see. Plague Trucker Zach says, Clarence schooled dummy Biden on his hearing. Remember? Nope, but that's funny. Wolfgang Deo says, why is apolitical a thing when that is for private matters? Politics is public policy. How should we live in a community or nation? Colloquial politics is partisan bickering, the source of problems. He also says, just as religion isn't bad, it's dogma, but dogma is settled opinion. What settled it? No politics, no religion is stupid, no partisan dogma. With that, we are going over to Rumble exclusively. The link is in the pinned comment in the chat. It's also in the description on YouTube. Please pop over to Rumble. We have over 9,000. What? Over 9,000? That's impossible. People watching on Rumble right now. Hope to see you over there as well. Chicken Noble says, Vinland Saga Season 2 is over. What did you think of it? I haven't watched it yet. Did Torfinn's character development arc meet your expectations? Again, haven't watched it. All right, guys. We've got the 20-second little transition, and we'll see you over on Rumble. Peace. Yes, Rumble is free, Bex. Rumble is free. Peace. Where's my button?
For the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, ladies and gentlemen,